So on my 30 Days of Crunches challenge video, I had someone comment asking how I was eating during this challenge, and I thought that was a really good question, so I decided to turn that into its own video. So we've all heard the saying, abs are made in the kitchen, and although I haven't discovered that recipe just quite yet, I do know that the changes that I made to my diet during this challenge have and are continuing to help aid me in my weight loss journey. So let's get into the video. So in the beginning of the challenge, I decided that I was going to try vegan keto, and that was mainly because women who suffer from PCOS, the condition that I suffer from, often see really good results when they follow a ketogenic diet. And so I thought that it would work for me. So I tried the diet for a couple weeks, I believe, and I quickly fell off, and that was for two different reasons. The first reason was that I was having a really hard time consuming enough fat while also not going overboard with the carbs, and also protein, trying to consume enough fat and protein without going overboard with carbs and eating too many calories. So I was having a hard time finding the balance, and that was something that I dealt with every day. I had guides that I was following on what you should eat, what foods, like, guides explaining what foods are really good for ketogenic diets and vegan ketogenic diets, what vegetables you should avoid and what vegetables you should consume. I also got sick and tired of not being able to eat beans. I love beans. And two, because I jumped into the diet ill-prepared. So I am the kind of person that when I get really excited about something, I just want to do it. And that's great sometimes, but in other instances not. And this was one of those cases where I decided that I wanted to go keto, and I had already bought a bunch of groceries that were not allowed on the diet that I was trying to follow. And, being a vegan, I tend to be more conscious. I'm not saying that other people aren't, but I tend to be more conscious about food waste and trying to prevent food waste. And so I noticed that a lot of food that I had in the fridge was not allowed on the diet that I was following, and I did not want that food to go to waste. So that was the second reason that I didn't finish the diet, was that I wanted to make sure that I ate the food that I bought, because I just couldn't allow myself to waste that much food. I did finish all the food. I'm really good at finishing all my food, So during the 2 weeks that I did follow the vegan keto diet, I didn't see any significant changes, but what I did notice is that focusing on fat and protein helped me to feel fuller after my meals, and I didn't get the blood sugar spikes and jitters that I would sometimes get when I was eating high carb meals. So what I decided to do instead was I decided to follow a low carb vegan diet, which I say in quotations because my vegan version of low carb is still higher carb than maybe someone following a traditional low carb diet or keto, paleo, whatever diets that people follow that fall under the tag of low carb. I'm still consuming more carbs than them, but I think it's low for a vegan diet. So the way that I do this is that I prioritize when I'm building and planning my meals for the week. I do a general outline, but I also meal prep. So when I'm planning what I'm going to be eating for the week, I prioritize my protein, then my fat, and then my carbs. So that's how I do it. So I fill in the blanks with the carbs. So I like to break things into categories. When it comes to the carbs, what I prioritize first are my green leafy vegetables. So during this time, I was eating a standard meal of mine would look something like a serving of tempeh, a serving of navy beans because they're my favorite beans, quite a bit of maybe 2 servings of either steamed mustard greens or steamed kale, and also a little bit of quinoa or rice or corn, just depending, or couscous. And that was what a standard meal looked like for me. A standard, I would say, lunch or dinner would look like for me. And when I eat this way, I find that, as I mentioned before with the keto, that I feel fuller with my meals. I often find myself feeling so, as I mentioned in my last video, my introduction video, which if you haven't seen that, I'll leave in the cards, whichever direction it's gonna be, so that you can watch it. But I did mention that I used to be food focused for a very long time, food, it was I don't know if it was comfort, boredom, just the fact that I was growing so fast when I was younger, because as you can see the difference, between me from 2001 to 2006. I grew a lot in those 5 years. And that requires a lot of calories, but I was just so hungry all the time, and that did carry on into adulthood for me. So it's really nice to be able to eat a normal sized portion of food and to feel satisfied from that. And that's something that I didn't experience when I first went vegan. And I mentioned again in my last video that I had originally wanted to go raw vegan, and I did mention that it was partially because I was recovering from an eating disorder at the time. And I was afraid of gaining a lot of weight when I switched back to normal foods, which happens. And I remember, because of my extreme appetite, I thought that I could follow this diet and I would be fine, right? That I would be able to eat a lot of food and not suffer, the consequences, I thought. So I thought I wasn't thinking straight, but I did have a hard time finishing all that food. So yeah, I couldn't do it. But when I eat this way, I truly do feel satisfied after my meals, and I'm not thinking about other food. And if I am thinking about other food, it's more like a square of chocolate or a vegan stroopwafel. So I took them out of here. I found vegan stroopwafels and they're very good. I love them. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I did. I know, so I was focusing on, I should say that even though I prioritize my fats, I still do have a hard time remembering to add fat sources to my meals. So the way I was doing it was I was making kind of a hummus that's like fattier than typical, what's typical. So more tahini and more olive oil than most people put. And then that would be the sauce for my meal, because I found that like hummus, like warm hummus, is actually very good. Like I've had it warm at a restaurant, but I've never thought to warm it up at home. It's so good. So I use that as a sauce on my meals. What else do I do? I was buying a lot of avocado, and so eat my meal prep, tempeh, tofu sort of meals that I mentioned before, interchangeably with lunch or dinner. So I would either have a salad for lunch and the meal prep for dinner, or prep for lunch and the salad for dinner. And when I made my salad, I would make sure to put a good amount of avocado and a fatty dressing on it. And that was my way of making sure I was getting enough fat in the day, and also adding nuts and seeds to my salads and things like that. And yeah, I truly did feel really good after I had started eating that way, and continually ate that way for a week. And so that's the way I've been eating there on out. I still do have a sweet tooth. As you might notice, that when it comes to choosing foods for taste test videos, I often gravitate towards the sugary, fatty things. And so yeah, I still have a sweet tooth. So as I mentioned before, I have started to eat vegan stroopwafels every once in a while, and those are pretty good. They're not like an everyday thing. They're not an every week thing. I just have some and I love them. When I eat them, they're great. But mainly what I do when I'm having sweet cravings is I have a fruit and protein smoothie. I'll make a smoothie with like mango, frozen pineapple, blueberry, kale, this green powder that I got that, I mean, it's one of those things where it's probably not necessary, but I just like to have it. It's most definitely not necessary actually, but I just like to have it. And a little bit of orange juice or soy milk and water. I don't know if I mentioned already protein powder. I'll do cinnamon, hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia pudding for a while, because I made this chia pudding with ground chia and I did not like it. It was bitter, but I found that my smoothies would really hide the taste of it. So I'd put that in my smoothies, and I think that was it. And then I would blend that up, and that was my smoothie, and that hit the sweet tooth right in the bud. Everything that I'm saying is so cringy, ew. Oh, I forgot to mention, so for breakfast, I've been doing this protein coffee for a while, and I did mention it in my last video. So I've been using like the Live Body pea protein powder, and if you have never heard of that stuff, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's like the best protein powder I've ever had for just mixing into liquid, and also for cooking. Like, this protein powder is so fine that this protein powder is so fine that you can just mix it right into water, and it only slightly thickens the water. And it dissolves so nicely. It's so good. And they have so many really good flavors. The only two flavors that I've tried so far are the frosted oatmeal cookie and the mocha flavor. Yeah, and I have those two right now, and they're so good. I'm almost done with the frosted oatmeal cookie. I've baked with it. I put it in a mug cake. I put it in, I mix them in with a cookie recipe, and it's just, that protein powder is so good. And it's sweetened. It's naturally sweetened. It also has probiotics, which I'm sure are killed when I cook it with it, but it's such a good protein powder. So I use the Live Body protein powder and the Bob's Red Mill soy protein isolate interchangeably, just depending on what I'm using. Like obviously in my smoothies, my fruit smoothies, I'm not going to add mocha flavored protein powder. That would be kind of gross. I just use the unsweetened soy protein. And then when I'm making something like my coffee, which I had earlier, I use the Live Body protein, or when I'm making something like a dessert, like a healthy dessert, I'll add the protein powder, and it's so good. And that also helps keep me full. So I did want to mention with trying to be lower carb, I use the protein powder because it makes it easier for me to add protein to things without adding a whole lot of carbs as well. Because again, I feel a lot better when I do low carb. Anyway, that is what I did. That's how I ate during that challenge. If I haven't already, I'll insert some clips of my Chronometer days so you can have an idea of what I was eating during this challenge. I really enjoyed doing that challenge. I know I've mentioned it before in the challenge video, but I really enjoyed doing that challenge. It was a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys will try it out. Some people said that they were going to try it. I'm really curious to know if you guys stuck with it. Honestly, having the calendar, it's up on the wall, you can't see it, but honestly having that calendar, I think is what really helped me, especially during this time when every day is starting to feel the same. You know, that 9 Inch Nails song, every day is starting to feel the same. So it's really nice to have a physical calendar that you can hold and cross days off. I think that actually helped me get through the quarantine, because I was off of work for a month and it was not good. I was not in a good place during that time. So this, I think, that might have been the reason that I enjoyed it so much. I had something to look forward to every day, even though it was the same. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm bad at explaining things if you can't tell. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. I don't know that it was necessarily helpful, but I hope you found it interesting. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Bye.